It's fine. I'm just like, I'm tired. I'm so excited because um my birthday's Sunday and I'm off all of next week.
Oh,
Wow,
nice.
happy birthday.
Nice.
Nice.
So
Happy early
excited.
birthday.
Thank you. I am like, I realized when I got back from Montauk like 3 weeks ago that I had only taken 3.5 days off this year, which is
Mm.
really unheard of for me. And of those 3.5 days, I literally worked 2.5 of those days. So I was exhausted, and I need a break. So I'm very excited to just be next week, whatever that means.
That's it.
Whatever that
Right.
means.
But you know what? Sometimes, and maybe I'll ask a question while we're in, when we actually are live. You need that mental reset, that break from the monotony of not only just the job, but from having to be so present. Black people have to be so present and navigate every moment. And sometimes we need to just be authentically ourselves, divorced from everything else. So like having that moment to really fall back is super important. And I don't think we value that enough. I don't think we treasure that enough.
No, because a lot of people feel like they just need to be always at work with their head down, doing what they need to do. But they don't realize that vacation time is actually necessary in order to recharge. You're not
Yeah.
your best self if you're tired.
I'm gonna revisit that in the
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. My mom, she's talking about like retiring, and she's got like 100 and something days of like PTO accrued. I'm like, Mom, take your ass and stay home. Like, just why? You could literally not go to work for like half the year and retire and still get paid. You know,
Yeah.
she's like, oh, they'll pay me out for all the days I don't use. I'm like, Mom, like the stress of going to work every single day ain't worth the money, you know? Like just take
That's
that mental break.
but that's the old school
when you,
that way. They don't take risks.
They don't.
That wasn't
They don't.
my mom didn't, they didn't. And I remember that a few years ago, the woman that went viral, the ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think people really a lot of our culture is a lot of times misconstrued or made memes or gifts or a lot of the things that we say and have done, and it becomes a fodder for the broader culture. And when they made it, she was like, "Ain't nobody got time for that," and it became a kind of funny thing. I heard that my entire life in my family, where you don't get sick. It's not, and we don't have time for that. We got to move on. And that was kind of like the thing. Like, anybody got time for that? Pick it up. Let's go. Let's go. Kind of thing. So it's weird how that translates through so many of our families. Like, we just don't have time to have downtime, which is insane.
Yeah.
yeah.
I've taken advantage of this pandemic and being forced to be home. And I've been able to do, like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine driving in, and tonight is the first night of the restart or the continuation of the NBA season.
Yep.
And I've watched so many other programs and I've done so much with my time without sports that I don't think I'll ever go back to being the hardcore sports fanatic
Yeah,
I was, because there's so much more to life than,
you're
than
investing
just
in
that.
their time instead of your
Exactly,
own time.
exactly.
I think that that's true with with work too. Like I think a lot of people are just reevaluating life right now in general. Like my boss, she lives like down by Middletown, Middleton, something like that, somewhere in Jersey. It takes her 2 hours to commute one way. I'm like, there is no way I would have been doing that prior to the pandemic, but now that we've been working from home and they told us last Friday, we're not going back this year at all. I don't know when we're going to go back. I could not imagine being in her position and like as soon as like whatever ends up happening, having to come back into the office. Like I just wouldn't do it. Like
Yeah.
of my day, like I would be reevaluating a lot
Mm-hmm.
in terms of my job. I know like a lot of people have left the city. There's a mass exodus happening right now because people are like, why am I paying all of this money for rent?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like in a box. Like in my building alone, we had 30 move outs in the month of June.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know how many they had this month, but it's just like there. I think I saw an article like a 600% increase in sublets in Astoria alone.
Mhm.
Insane.
Mhm.
The one we're gonna have to make sure we don't let's not let the John Lewis discussion hijack.
Yeah,
I don't.
I was gonna say
We don't
I
even
don't
have to
even
do
know.
it.
Yeah,
We don't have to do it.
yeah. I was gonna say, Mike.
Even before we sign off, just want we can say shout out to rest in peace,
Yeah,
John Lewis,
we can do that.
as
That's
we
fine.
who made it, who was a part of the journey, part of the fight that made it possible for us to be in the position that we are in, to be even be fighting in corporate,
Yeah,
to be
that's fine.
recognized.
Exactly.
I'll
For us
let
to
you-
even be
I'll let
in
you
corporate
close
America.
with that. We could chime in.
I
But I
like
mean,
that.
he's done some pretty outstanding and
Right.
substantial work for our people.
Right.
So, that needs to be, spoke about. Man, his funeral was today. So,
Oh, it was today.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
today.
All right.
So,
So that's-
Obama took the stage and killed it. So
I mean, all three of the presidents who spoke were absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, so I missed the first half of the funeral, but I'm definitely going to rewatch.
They were great.
I gotta tell you something. I'm not a Bush policy guy, but he's shown to be quite a humble individual.
Have you ever seen Vice?
Excuse me?
Have you watched the movie Vice?
I have not.
Oh my God, you need to watch the movie Vice.
Really?
It's about Dick Cheney.
I heard.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really
Oh,
good.
Yes. I heard about it, but I never watched it.
Right.
It's so good. And it's like, it really shines a light on like how he was really the driver of policies. And Bush is just like, and you can see it like in how his interactions are. He just is kind of like, just like not.
Yeah, he's cool.
Right.
He's got his little cool bop when he walks.
Like, I think
Him and Michelle Obama have like this amazing love affair with each other. That shot where she gives him that piece of candy is absolutely amazing. It's brilliant.
right. I mean, it's not to excuse his policies because he definitely has some really mess up stuff that.
100%, yeah.
But you can tell that like, I don't know. I think they used him to get to the office. Like they wanted to continue to have it in the family. But I just think that he really wasn't president. Dick Cheney was.
Right.
And he allowed that to happen. And that is the problem.
Yeah, he wasn't strong enough. He didn't have a strong enough voice to
Correct.
kind of slap down Dick Cheney. And then you had the Karl Rove operatives.
Correct.
And then he was, because you know you and I'm going to use a French term. You're in the fucked up world when that's not French. When you long for George W.
Yeah.
Because where we are right now is unbelievable.
I mean, he's definitely done some horrible stuff, but yeah, it's that movie. It comes from a comedic lens. Like they're definitely being informative and educational, but it's produced by Will Ferrell, so there's some comedy in there too. Right. But it's really good. I've seen it like 2 or 3 times, and it's really, really, really good. But yeah. I say all that to say that all 3 of their speeches today, and they had Nancy Pelosi spoke and like all of these amazing people in the civil rights movement. I mean, they were all phenomenal. It was really beautifully done.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're gonna get going. Okay. Get this bad boy started. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and being a part of the perspectives of Black men. And as usual, my name is Kellen. I'm here with Aaron and
Devon Smith.
And we have our first actual guest on here, a very, very, very special woman who's going to be joining us today on episode 4. And she goes by the name of Lauren Williams. I want to just read a little bit about Miss Williams for those of you tuning in, just so you can have a little bit of background information on her. Lauren Williams is the Senior Director of Strategic Audio and Vertical Marketing at Pandora in New York City. She has been in the marketing world for over 14 years across entertainment, financial services, consumer packaged goods, food services, adult beverages, retail industries. You name it, she's had her hands in there. At Pandora, Lauren leads a team of data-driven storytellers at the forefront of audio and vertical marketing trends that position Pandora as a major thought leader. Lauren received her master's degree in journalism with a concentration in public relations from Indiana University and a Bachelor of Arts degree from Kentucky State University, a historically Black college. Definitely want to speak on your experience there tonight. Lauren lives in Long Island City. Shout out to Queens. Loves traveling, nail art, and all things that sparkle. Love that last line.
I love that last one as well. All things that sparkle.
So Lauren, we are super, super excited to have you on today's show. Today's topic is going to be talking about being Black in corporate America and sharing our views, our stories. And we really want to highlight Lauren and her story tonight because she is an absolute queen, and her story is going to be valuable to so many people tonight. So without further ado, Lauren, can you say hello to the people?
Wow, hello, what a welcome. I don't know if anyone has ever had, you know, when you get in front of people and someone like reads your bio or talks about you, it's very odd because you're like, who's this person that you speak of? Until you said like the sparkle part, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's me. Because
I saw that. I saw you get a little dance in there.
Kellen knows this. I definitely love anything that's like glittery or gold or like it's very funny. But yes, hello everyone. My name is Lauren Williams. In the business world, I go by Lauren D. Williams because Lauren Williams is a very common name and I need to have some type of differentiating factor in the advertising and marketing space. So I use my middle initial to help put in some of that jazz. But yeah, I live in New York. I've been in advertising and marketing for a number of years. And I'm really excited to be here, to be the first guest. Like that's such an honor. So thank you for asking me to be a part of this. I'm really excited to have a really detailed conversation about not only my experience, but you know, experience about being, you know, a Black person, a Black woman working in corporate America. It is definitely a difficult experience, but it's one that's very valued at the same time. I don't take anything that I have been able to accomplish for granted. I know that I have favor running all in through, up and through my veins. And so I'm excited for the opportunity and I appreciate you guys shining a light and making something glitter even more.
So necessary.
Mm-hmm. So we're coming to you again live from Fit Club, Chelsea, New York. New York City is in the building. If anyone is watching, following, if you have any questions for us or for Lauren, please feel free to type them into the chat. And we're going to get started today. So I know you guys have some amazing questions.
I do, Lauren. And I didn't want to cut anybody off unless you want to go first. I was listening to what you said, and when you said, you know, I used that the middle initial to kind of stand out, and it kind of connects to a question that I had about, you know, as Black people are moving into certain spaces, a lot of our parents always tell us that we have to be twice as good to get half as much. And when I think about you saying that I wanted to stand out, and you recognize and understand your positionality as a Black person in this corporate space where there's not many of us. Can you speak to that experience? To what extent did you feel you had to stand out or to work extra hard to be recognized for your talents?
Yeah, I think my parents always attempted to instill in me the work ethic of like always achieving and striving for greatness. And I think that's something that has probably been embedded in me since I was very young. I'm the youngest in the family. I have an older sister. I always looked up to her. She was always achieving greatness. And I was just like, wow, you know, I come from a household where both of my parents were fortunate to achieve, you know, college degrees. My mother has a master's. She was an educator for a number of years. And I wanted to make sure that I made them proud, that I made not only my parents proud, but I really valued the opinion of my sister. And so I really tried to emulate everything that she was doing, and then some, because it's also a competition, you know.
Right. It's definitely a competition between siblings.
I love that.
So your achievement basically was an expectation,
Yeah.
but it also was normalcy in your household.
Yes. It was. I think, you know, in my house, in my direct, immediate household, it was definitely normal. You know, my parents definitely had different type of upbringings from what I had, and they were really attempting to make sure that they were able to provide that type of lifestyle for me because they didn't have that. So my mom, she was born and raised, well, she was born in East Chicago, but she was raised in Gary, Indiana. My dad is from the south side of Chicago. And they definitely didn't have the same type of privileges that I did growing up. So I definitely acknowledge that fact in myself. Cause, you know, even when I think about my cousins or, you know, some of my family members who didn't have those same opportunities, and they still ended up, you know, very similar in the same situations that I did, but, you know, they definitely, I still acknowledge the different experiences and the different tracks that they had to take in order to get to where they are. But it was normal in my household, and it was expected of me to be the best version of myself every day. At school, I represented not only myself, I represented my family, I represented my church, I represented my sister, whoever it was. And so that was definitely some things that I carried with me throughout my entire childhood and even into adulthood. Because now, you know, and it's really, really difficult not to do this because it's been instilled in me for so long, but I strive to perfection. I strive for perfection in everything that I do. I always try and put my best foot forward. And sometimes that can be a hurdle and sometimes a challenge because no one is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Really coming to that understanding and being okay with, you know, sometimes failing or not necessarily achieving greatness all of the time, because it's those ebbs and flows of life that get you to where you're supposed to go. You're not supposed to always have the highs, because you wouldn't appreciate the highs if you didn't have any lows.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you answered one of my questions,
Oh, sorry.
That was great.
which was I was going to ask you, you know, I think the character of a person is rooted in how they deal with adversity. And so I want to know, do you attribute your success to your family? And as far as dealing with adversity, what type of adversity have you dealt with where you sat back and you said, wow, like this is going to make me stronger. I need to get on the other side of this. What are some examples of some of those things? Because I hear you talk about your dad being from the south side of Chicago. And I know that you make it out of the south side of Chicago, you did something, you dealt with some adversity and you came out stronger on the other end of that. And I can sit here and listen to you speak, and it's very evident and obvious to me that somebody instilled some strong values in Lauren. So
Yeah, you know, going to your first part of your question in terms of like um, instilling those values, like who did it? You know, I think it's been a lot of people. I have been so fortunate to have so many types of people come into my life who have mentored me into who I am right now. And I'm still going through it. You know, life is always about consistently being a student, being someone who learns from different experiences, who might deal with adversity, but like you said, that helps you to be a better person. I'm in a program right now. It's called Management Leadership for Tomorrow, and they have different type of programs within MLT. It's a nonprofit organization that is specifically for minorities being Black, Native American, or Hispanic, and it's designed to give them the tools and skills in order to succeed. And right now I'm in the career advancement program, which is designed for people who like me, mid-level in their career, to give them the tools and skills in order to elevate them into the C-suite eventually. And through that entire experience, I learned so much about myself and how I had been dealing with adversity or not dealing with adversity. Um, and understanding, like we all have these voices in our heads, right? And sometimes that can be to our detriment, but it also can be to our betterment, because some of those voices in my head that I have used over the course of my 36 years of life who have told me I'm not good enough, that I will never have what it takes, that you're not smart enough, that you're inadequate. But some of that has really molded me into who I am now. Some of that has been a positive. But through MLT, I've been able to navigate it and understand like how to use it to my advantage. And so I think it's not necessarily just, I say that I want to mention MLT specifically because it's a great organization, especially for people like us, Black people who are achieving greatness and doing all of these things. But it just goes to show that it's, you know, it's an ongoing process. Like I am far from where I should be, but I am exactly where I need to be in this moment. And it's been because of all of the different people at different moments in my life who have come in and helped me be able to be the best version of myself, to get me through those really hard times, to get me through, you know, the different failures. I think about like my time at Kentucky State, and there was a woman, actually her birthday was yesterday. Her name was Mrs. Leslie Thomas. And I ran for Miss Kentucky State, and there were so many different things that happened with that. I was named Miss Kentucky State, and then I had the title stripped. That's a whole nother story. But she took me in and under her wing because I was so embarrassed to be on campus. And she took me into her home, made sure like I was 6 hours away from my family. She made sure I had what I needed. She uplifted me. She empowered me. She mentored me. And it helped me get through that hard time and set me up for success later in order to deal with some really embarrassing situations in the future. So I don't necessarily, it's hard for me to pinpoint one point, one thing, one person, one instance, because there's been so many instances, and I've been so fortunate to have so many wonderful people do that for me in such a powerful way. I don't know if I answered the last part of your question.
I think you did.
I thought that was very
I thought you answered the question.
Especially the broad stuff, because you just got me thinking about a lot of things that connect to my own. And I think we were talking in the car, and what you said, you know, the feelings of not being adequate enough, not being smart enough, not being good enough. And a lot of times people out there in the world like to use the successes of Black people, of certain Black people, as a way to say, see, there's nothing wrong, you guys made it, you know. And I'm like, if my outcomes can't be easily reproduced, then there's a structural problem. And we need to deal with removing that structure. So for someone as accomplished as you to say that you still had to kind of traverse and navigate this system so that you can get to the place that you needed to be, it's just evident that we have so far to go. And with that, I want to ask you, what led you to kind of sojourn over to Pandora? What led you there?
You know, I was in the advertising, like the ad industry type of role for a very long time. I was trying to get out of it for so many years because I just didn't know what I was signing myself up for when I got the job out of graduate school. And from like 4 months in, I was like, this is not what I want to do, but I could not get out for the longest. But my mom always told me, like, you're there for a reason. And until you learn that reason, you're not going to be able to move and make that transition. So you might as well stick it out, learn from it, and get what you need. And so I was in there, you know, I worked in the ad industry in Chicago, in New York, blah, blah, blah. I met all of these amazing people on the sales side. And so my last ad agency that I worked at was Universal McCann. I was running strategy for Office Depot, Office Max, and Build-A-Bear. And we did a lot of advertising with Pandora. And it was a very like educational type of role where I had done some work previously with Pandora with putting, you know, audio ads on their platform, et cetera. But this was like really immersed into Pandora. And a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn. By the way, I want to say this. If anyone who is watching this is interested in getting involved in any type of role, etc., please update your LinkedIn, because every single role that I have gotten in New York City has been through LinkedIn. I have not applied for anything. I have had recruiters reach out to me through LinkedIn. So that's a huge plug for LinkedIn right there. But she reached out to me and was like, hey, there's this role. It's a senior manager role, doing vertical marketing. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh, let's try it. Because for so many years, I had wanted to work in the music industry. In undergrad, I started out as a vocal music performance major. In grad school, I worked in promotions and like advertising for the African American Arts Institute at Indiana University. And I just wanted to be back on the side of music. So I was like, let's just see what happens. I had all the interviews. It was like a 2.5-month process. And when it got further down the road, I went back to those relationships that I had built on the agency side by being a lot of people's clients, and I asked for a recommendation. And that is what sealed it. Because I think I had, really done well in the interview process, but when you have a referral by someone who is one of the highest ranking salespeople in the organization, and she, yes, she's golden. That's it. So that's how I ended up at Pandora, was through the power of networking with LinkedIn and the power of utilizing the relationships that I had built over so many years for a recommendation.
Mm-hmm. I love that story because I think it really highlights, like you said, especially for, maybe the young men and young women watching this, like the power of relationships and networking. And, we don't really learn that. It's not something that's taught in school. It's not like a subject that you go to high school or college for. But, when you get out to the real world and you hear the term all the time, network, like, what does that mean? I think, Lauren, you embodied it by your spirit and your overall aura and just people being attracted to that. So now when you need something and you're not someone who asks for much, right? Like you want to give more than you take, but in that instance, you were able to receive that glowing review and that really sealed the deal. So yeah. I think that's awesome.
And I want to piggyback on something you said there, Kellen, because you said that's not something that was taught in school, and you are 100% right. But for our white counterparts, that is something that they are taught.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%.
I agree.
That is in that generational wealth that they have accumulated. And they are taught these little life skills down the board that some of our parents just didn't have those opportunities. And it's not our parents' fault, right? So I think it's so important for people like us to not only tell like our children, but to have forums like this so that they can learn from the things that we've been through in order to apply to their own lives. Because some of these life skills, you're right, they're not taught in the classroom, but sometimes our counterparts are learning that at home.
Great point. I have two questions. First, I know I have a younger brother. So when you talk about competition, I'm all about that. So I want to know, your sister isn't able to come on the Zoom with us, but I want to know a little bit about your sister because I know how successful you are right now. So now I want to know where are we at on the scale with that?
And what's the age difference?
So she is 3 years and 9 months older than I am.
Exact. Okay.
She acts like she used to act like she was like 15 years older. I mean, like used to act like she was my mom. She would try and like give me spankings. And then I like got like older and I like got taller than her. So I started like slamming her against walls and stuff. I was like, but my sister, she's a boss too. She is married with 2 kids who are 10 and 5. She lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. She is the executive director of alumni relations at DePaul with the W University in Greencastle, Indiana, which is where she went to school. She's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. She sits on a board. She is a boss as well. So she's doing really big things in the educational arena type of thing. But we're very I mean, it's so funny. We're so, you know, we live very different lives, but we're still so similar because we were raised by the same parents. But yeah, she's doing big things. You should look her up. Her name is Leslie N. Smith. She uses the middle initial too because she has a generic name as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
So again, that just shows the foundation that was laid by your family, right? The fact that you both are able to be highly successful, articulate Black women out here just doing the damn thing. So that's awesome because I know we've spoken in prior Zoom sessions about the importance of that foundation being there. So it sounds like you in the household as well as outside of the household with some of the mentorship and that was being put onto and into your life, that you were able to take advantage of that. So I'm super happy to hear about the success of your sister as well. And then the second part of my question, I really want to dive into the topic today of being Black in corporate America. And I know there's often times where we are uncomfortable when we're in the work environment, and that can be very frustrating. So I wanted to maybe, and you don't have to say any specific company, you don't have to say any specific people, but I would just love to give from the perspective, the Black lens of how sometimes we're made to feel uncomfortable. If you can share a specific story with the people to just add and share some light as to why we may feel the way we feel in that corporate setting.
I want to start with a story that made me feel really comfortable. And I think I'll add some perspective to it. So my very first job out of graduate school was in Chicago. I worked at an ad agency. At the time, it was called Starcom MediaVest Group. But I was hired to be a part of their multicultural agency, and it was named Tapestry at that time. And it really was what a multicultural agency should be. I mean, there were Black people, there were Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ, white, I mean, you name it. Everyone worked there, and we all learned the ins and outs of advertising to all the diverse audiences that this country is made up of. And then 4 years later, I moved to New York and was shell-shocked about how white the advertising industry was. I just wasn't used to experiencing that in Chicago. And you would think New York, it's New York. New York is the biggest city in the world with all of these amazing people, all these different languages are spoken. And I just felt so uncomfortable in the first 3 years of my my life here. I mean, I enrolled myself in therapy because there were times where I would be in meetings and it just, they're talking about advertising to Black people as if I'm not even present, or they don't ask my opinion on how we should speak. Is this correct? Does this have the right tonality to it? I wasn't even consulted in some of those instances. And then if I was seen as, I would try and speak up, then it was oh, you need to back a little bit. You need to dim your light because it makes people uncomfortable when you're so passionate because they're not like you and they think that you're being aggressive. And it's just but I'm just doing what, my white counterparts are doing. They're trying to be a part of the conversation. I mean, that's what they taught us when we first at Tapestry. If you're in a meeting, you have something to say. You're not just sitting there. You make sure that you bring your A game every day to that table. And so I would do that here. And it was just I was seen as, being aggressive or unpolished, or someone called me lazy one time. And I know that is definitely not even in my character. I mean, if anyone knows me, I'm barely ever sitting down doing anything. I'm always doing something for the betterment of X, Y, and Z. And so it was just a really difficult transition from moving from Chicago to New York in an industry that I had grown to like try to love. I mean, I already didn't really want to be here. And then it was like, oh, now you guys don't even really want me to be here. But it wasn't really until I got to my third agency in New York City, because I was just like hopping around because it just didn't feel right. Like something was off. Like, why is there no one who really looks like me in these spaces? Like, it was just so conflicting and confusing to what I was used to. And so I think that that's like, it's still a work in progress. I mean, with everything that's going on, there's been a letter by 600 ad professionals, Black ad professionals, demanding for change in our industry because it is super white. And there is no reason that it should be like that because there are so many qualified minorities, specifically Black minorities, who they need at those tables. Because right now, the lens is really open on corporate America, especially the people who are pushing out messages and marketing to people. And they need specific voices at those tables, and that representation matters. They need those people at the table so that they don't come off as looking tone deaf. I mean, I can name so many brands right now who have gotten it so wrong in the last 2 years. I mean, wow. Kendall Jenner and Pepsi, woo, that was bad.
Yep.
H&M with the boy with the monkey on.
Yep.
And they can sit up here and blame these global teams all they want to because
That's what they do.
But you know what? No, you need representation across the board, no matter where your ad is running, no matter who it's being formulated by. That's why we need to be present in these spaces.
Black person would have said, take that, we can't do that, sir.
Yeah.
Like immediately, that little monkey thing, but that whole lesser primate stereotype for
I think Dior had like a noose, like necklace,
like a blackface mask on another one with the red lips and like.
Yeah. Like what is happening? And I know like some fashion brands like Gucci, I mean, that's Black people have been wearing that forever. They don't have any diversity in their organization. So what?
Let me ask you, do you think that in the wake of the George Floyd moment, right, that really took the covers off, right, the veneers off of the yuck mouth of America, do you think in this moment that there is an institutional shift, like where you work right now? Is there an institutional shift? Is it reactive? Has it been proactive before this moment? What do you think right now is happening, especially where you are?
Yeah, so I will say from a larger, like entire, like community as terms of like corporate America, yes, I think that there is a shift happening. I do think it has been reactive. There have been a lot of people who have been speaking up and shouting this from the rooftops for a very long time and nobody listened. However, now is different. And I've been having a lot of these kind of conversations with some of my colleagues, people that I talk to on the podcast, et cetera. I'm like, why do you think that there is this shift? And if you really think about it, the people who are in these more C-suite level roles have kids who are in the Generation Z, like they're Generation Z. They're the ones who are out there with the Black people protesting. So those kids are going home to their parents and being like, this is unacceptable. You need to do something about it. And so there's a direct correlation. Like, I don't think that a lot of the people who are in the position of power to implement change really took it seriously until somebody that they knew actually cared about it. So I think that from a whole industry perspective, yes, I think there's a shift. Yes, I think it's reactive. I do think that in order to make systematic change, it's going to be slow. It's going to be sometimes painful for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people are learning that the way that they speak matters. And like, they can't just say things off the cuff. But I think that, you know, as people who have been fighting for this change for so long, I think it's also important for us to allow people the space to grow and allow these companies to make the change and see what happens. Like, I mean, yeah, you can have your opinion for, like, if you feel like, you know, the company's really not going to make the changes and you work there, then it's like, okay, then you need to evaluate, do your values still line up with the corporate values that they are outlining? Now, from a Pandora perspective, we're owned by SiriusXM as of last March of 2019. There's a reason I've been at Pandora for over 4 years. I've never worked anywhere else longer in my entire career, ever. The D&I goals that Pandora, before we were purchased by SiriusXM, were very, they were outlined very vividly in what the goals were. Having 40% of our workforce represent underrepresented groups by a specific year. I mean, they had specific metrics. We have ERGs, which is employee resource groups, outlined for not only people of color, but for women, for pride, et cetera. It has been at Pandora that I have been able to find my own voice, and I have been able to have the space to do that. But I will say that it has been through those ERGs. The ERGs were the ones who gave me that voice first. So, you know, D&I saw something in me, diversity and inclusion team. Shout out to Lisa Lee, who's now at DoorDash, but she saw something in me like in 2016 and was like, hey, can you go speak at this, this random panel discussion with HR professionals? And, you know, I'm not in HR, I'm in marketing. And I was like, okay, you know, like, this is great. Like, I can go talk, I can talk it to anybody, I don't care. But it was through, like, it's our ERG is called Mixtape. It was through Mixtape that I was given so many amazing opportunities. And I seized the moment with Mixtape because it gave me a lot of visibility in the organization. And then in my real day-to-day job, they started seeing me writing these articles and speaking on these panels and representing the organization at different networking events, et cetera. And then it folded naturally into my day-to-day job. And now that we're owned by Sirius, you know, they recognize, and they have ever since day one, you know, Pandora people are about it, especially the people who are in Oakland. They literally have not allowed SiriusXM to, they haven't allowed them to just take the back seat, and they have challenged them since day one. And now that we are in this George Floyd moment, and, you know, we have been shouting it from the rooftops that, like, yes, you guys are implementing change and you've done all these things, but we need to continue to drive this needle forward. This is what we need. This is what we need you to do. And there's been so many people who have stepped up and really shown their voice, from on-air talent at SiriusXM to some of the most senior corporate leaders that we have across both organizations have stepped up and been like, listen, we need to do this. And they have really made it a point to implement change. I mean, it was announced, we had like about a month ago, maybe it was I think maybe nowadays time is so weird, but we, like, our CEO sent us an email being like, this is all the things that we're doing. We're really gonna, you know, X, Y, and Z metric based. And we had our head of D&I, she went to go be at Apple earlier this year. And then COVID hit, you know, everything freezes. I mean, you know how it goes. But we were able to rehire our D&I VP, and she started like 3 weeks ago. They added a Black female to our board, the highest office for our entire company. She is I believe she's the president at the Apollo right now. I mean, she's got, you know, so much stake in the game right now. And I think it has definitely, some of it has been reactive for sure, but we've been challenging them for so many years to get it right. And I'm glad that they're listening. I'm glad that they've always listened, but I'm glad that more people are listening now. And it's sad that it took this, because this is like, we've been saying this for so long. Like, I remember getting up in front of 500 of my closest friends at the sales leadership conference, and it was like every person on the executive team on stage. I'm talking about CEO, CRO, CHO, CPO, CTO, like all of them. And I was like, okay, I'm so glad that we're here to talk about this. I'm so glad that you guys are uplifting women, but let's be real, all of these women initiatives do not trickle down to Black women, to LGBTQ women, to Hispanic women. This benefits white women. So what are you guys going to do to uplift these other underrepresented groups? And this was 3 years ago. So I like even had a moment probably at the end of May when George Floyd was murdered. I was like, why am I so upset? Like, what is going on with me? Like, I was going to work feeling so unmotivated, which is so unlike me. I was just like, what is going on? And I think what I realized was that, like, I was so tired. I was so tired of having to have this same conversation and saying these things, and no one was listening. And I was like, why are you listening now? Like, why couldn't you have listened 3 years ago, and then we wouldn't be where we are right now? At the same time, I'm like, I was able to work through that with the help of a lot of internal allies. And now I'm like at the point where, like, yeah, they didn't listen then, but I'm glad they're listening now.
So it's funny you mentioned about Generation X and how they've really been catapulted to the front lines, and what's going on in our country and in the world. And it's like, I think a lot of that is due to the fact social media, the internet has made the world a smaller place. It used to be your neighborhood or, was a small place. Now the world is a small place. And like 10 years ago, I started to notice that young people were listening to all the same music. They were wearing all the same clothes, because there was a better chance for diversity, right? If you go to some of the prestigious colleges or some of the prestigious high schools, they're not very diverse. You have to go into the mid-levels and into the lower levels to really get, more of the diversity. And I think there's more inclusion in how the young people communicate with each other. And so I think these young people go home and they make their parents feel uncomfortable. And that's a big part of the reason why the parents have to now say, wow, this is my child. Like, this is directly involves me and affects me, and I need to have this conversation and I'm happy that that's happening. And I'll say that Generation X has been very strong because they're all dealing with a great deal of adversity. So they're going to be very strong for it. So back to talking about being Black in corporate America. So for a long time, I worked for, I worked at Cablevision. I was a supervisor at Raymond and Flanagan. So I had some real, blue collar jobs. And as I grew and my network started to grow, because I had such success as a college basketball coach, I started to cross over into more of a corporate setting. So I work as a financial coach and insurance agent. And I noticed some things, some good, some bad, but all things that I could use for the betterment of myself and for people around me. So I noticed that there's no emotion in corporate America. Like, literally, it's business, it's cutthroat, and then let's still go have lunch together. And I noticed some of those same situations in my community, but we don't take the emotion out of it, right? So now, major clothing line, like you guys were talking about, can separate us, right? Because we'll go and compete for the same position, or thinking that we're competing for the same job, and instead of working together, we'll say, well, this person doesn't like me because I got a car, or because I have a house, or put the shoe on the other foot, I'm mad at this person because they have a house or they have a car. And we have to do a better job of understanding that we're stronger together. And the more of our people that we can have succeed, then they can, sow back into the community and be a blessing and a benefit to the community. The other side of it is I realize that corporate America is very selfish. It's very me. And it's all the time, and it's everything. And it's like no one listens. No one looks at your track record and what you've accomplished and your resume and the way you carry yourself and base their conversation. Let me not say no one, all right? I've just been burned by corporate America a few times. So, but
let it out. This is the judgment-free zone. We
actually do. This is what you have to say, right?
As a man of a certain age, he's upset.
So I got to the point in my career where I said, every opportunity is presenting me with some sort of supervisor or managerial position. So I just went self-employment, basically. I said, if I can do it for someone else, I can do it for myself. So my question to you would be, being Black, or being a woman, working in corporate America, what's your message to my daughter, who's 10, and you would be, as far as I'm concerned, a tremendous role model for her? What would your message be to her of how to navigate through that, and what would be your message to young people about us sticking together and trying to come to resolution, whether we agree or disagree on a particular topic?
Yeah, so I want to answer two things. First of all, I want you to know that you are not alone in terms of how you feel about corporate America. There's actually a study about being Black in corporate America. It's by talentinnovation.org, and I'll send it to you all so you can send this around. But it talks about all the different barriers and different things that people go through in terms of being a Black professional in corporate America. And it talks about how Black professionals are more likely than their white counterparts to be ambitious, right? And so it talks a lot about like all of the different findings and all this stuff. I thought it was just so amazing. And I ran across this like late last year, but it talks about how we're so frustrated and how over 1 in 3 Black employees intend to leave, and how Black men are more likely to be interested in starting their own ventures. So you're not alone. That's actually a fact in the data. And, I'm a marketer, but marketing is all powered by data. But it's very important for you to know that. And I think that segues perfectly into like how it is very important for all of us to be one, especially Black women. I think, being a Black woman, I don't know why. And I think it's in a lot of different industries, we're pitted against each other. I think about like even being a rap artist, like there can never just be 5 or 6 Black with female rappers. It always just has to be one. Like, why can't there be more? Why can't it be Foxy Brown and Lil Kim? Like, why can't it be Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B? Like, why is it just one? But it's always a competition. But as Black people, and especially as Black women, like I see the 3 of you, like you guys are all there uplifting each other, right? We need to do a better job at that. I cannot succeed without you. And so I think what needs to happen from the very beginning is fostering that type of mentality in our girls, because it's an institutional thing with women. And it's not just Black women, it's women. It's so catty. And it's like, why? Why does it need to be like that? It doesn't need to be like that. And so I would encourage you, all 3 of you. I mean, Kellen, I know you don't have daughters yet,
Yet.
Five boys. That's the goal.
Oh,
5 boys.
it's not happening. It's not happening.
And I credit my sister, who is watching this, by the way. I credit my sister a lot. Like my sister, my niece is 10, and she had her her birthday party before COVID, all this stuff happened. She had a sleepover, and there were some things happening even at that sleepover that were very questionable about like the way the girls were treating each other. And I think it's our duty as adults, as parents, as aunts and uncles, as anyone who is an elder, to when you see that type of stuff, especially if you're a woman, to really educate that young girl on why that's wrong and why it's important for us to uplift each other. Because if we don't uplift each other, we can't expect anybody else to.
That's a fact.
Do you think it's because of like institutional generational deprivation in terms of women going into spaces from like a deficit position, like because they've been shut out and because they have been so, their gender has been been made to be so unequal or inequitable in these spaces. Like because they're in there now, they're protecting their turf because of this generational deprivation of them.
That is 100% accurate. And earlier today, Trevor Noah dropped a new like little short video. It's like 8 minutes long on YouTube. And it's talking about, if you don't know, now you know, Black women deserve more credit. Right. And it talked about like the historical aspect of how Black women have been at the forefront of these movements, how they founded Black Lives Matter, how they founded Me Too, how they were at the forefront of the civil rights movement. And they got no credit. And so when one of us makes it in, of course, they guard their territory. They don't, instead of opening the door or a window in order to let other people come in, they guard their territory because I don't want to lose my spot.
Because they got no respect, no credit. They raised America. You're so right.
But how do you not lose your spot while also creating spots for someone else?
Right.
That's the point. You have your seat at the table. How are you going to pull up a chair for the next person?
Don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable.
Ever.
Yep.
Ever. You cannot be comfortable.
Yep.
But that's exactly what it is.
I'm not comfortable. I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable. I am pushing every single day.
Yes.
I'm never going to be comfortable. I want my children to want more. I want them to expect it. I had one of my managers actually tell one of my colleagues, not another manager, but one of my colleagues, that he feels that I'm entitled. And I said, you're damn right, I'm entitled. I'm entitled to be a man. I'm entitled to work here. I'm entitled to take care of my family. I'm entitled to my money. I am. So I'm not going to say sorry about that.
Nobody would say that, but nobody would call out someone who was doing the same thing who was white, a white dude who was doing that. It wouldn't be an issue. It would be like, oh, he's ambitious.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be entitled. He'd be ambitious.
Or hungry.
Hungry.
Lauren, I thought you brought up a great point. I want to keep with that topic. As a Black woman, like you said, like, you feel like one person gets in and it's like, my guard is up. I got to protect this space. Speaking to other Black women, speaking to other C-suite level Black women, what's maybe your perspective, your take, your advice, your suggestion for these women so that they can open the door for other women? Like, what would you like to see being done?
Yeah, I actually, I talk a lot about this with like some of my colleagues, and just like in just different mentorship conversations that I might have with people. First of all, I think as Black people, we have, especially Black women, like we're very smart. I will even say that we're probably the smartest species on this planet.
They are the smartest gender.
I'm going to agree with you.
They're literally statistically the smartest gender in America. Black women. That's a fact.
Fact. However, it's not always about you being smart. You, especially in corporate America, you cannot show up to work, go to your desk, put your head down, and do your work. Your work is not going to speak for itself. It's not. Listen, it's just not. You need to figure out a way to be your own advocate. You need to advocate for yourself in the spaces that you sometimes will feel uncomfortable in. You need to get uncomfortable. You need to figure out how to formulate relationships. You're going to have to step outside of your box. You need to befriend people who don't look like you. Like a lot of times we tend to gravitate towards people who we feel comfortable around. And sometimes those aren't the relationships those relationships are important. Don't get me wrong. You want to be friends with working friends really with everyone that you can. But if you're trying to elevate yourself internally, those other relationships matter so much. Like you have to step outside of your box. And you can't let your work speak for yourself. You need to find yourself a mentor who's going to help you get there. And it's important for you not to only have a mentor. The mentor can be someone who works at your job. It can be someone who you look up to who works at Netflix or whatever. I could literally go reach out to Bozoma St. John right now and be like, hey, you want to be my mentor? Like, okay, great. But you also need to have someone who is your sponsor. A sponsor is very different than a mentor. A mentor will help guide you and tell you what you need to do, et cetera, and help you work through different situations. A sponsor is going to speak up for you in rooms that you would not have been invited to because they are going to know about your work ethic. And then when you're not present, they're going to mention your name to the people who it matters most to. So I think if you can figure out how to have both of those, how to be an advocate for yourself and then also advocate for others, then you're truly set up for success.
That's phenomenal. I love that. I heard three things from you earlier in the conversation that really, and then the same answer that you gave, and I was like, wow, does he really do that? And I don't even know to what extent, if it's just innate to you or you planned it that way, but I heard you talk about your values, the values that you bring to an institution or a system or a business, and their values, and do they have alignment? I also heard voice. You found your voice aligning your values to that place that you're at, and then also to help bring out your visibility. So those three V's to me really, really stuck out about values, voice, and then visibility, because that's what Black people need in these spaces anyway. They need to make sure that they are on the right side of history, that they have the right set of internal values. They need to make sure that they're speaking unapologetically with that voice and to be visible with who they are and their fullest self. So I thought that was phenomenal when I was just listening to the fullness of the conversation. And I wanted to ask you, how do you recharge? How do you reset? We Black people in these spaces are constantly traumatized with microaggressions, with overt racism, with implicit bias. How do you fall back, recharge, reset, and then go right back into the fray?
Yeah, I think I'm going to recharge next week. I mean, I am exhausted. I mean, my job is one of the most valued jobs right now because it's all about positioning of the brand and how do you elevate our voice during this crazy time where it's like, oh, you get a handle on COVID, and then it's like, oh, just kidding, here's another pandemic, one that's been going on for 400 plus years in our country, and then figure out how to navigate putting out messages then, and then, oh, here you go, here's something else, it's Pride Month, and how do we do that? And it's just like nonstop. So like, I am so exhausted, and I think that's a really very, very important question, because we need to realize that no one is getting an award for not taking vacation. I legit just told someone this on my team like 2 hours ago. I was like, you need to take time for yourself. And she was like, I know, I just feel so bad. I mean, it's never a good time. I'm like you, I don't even remember who said it. It might've been you, Divine, when you said corporate America, people are selfish. you have to figure out a way to be selfish in a corporate way. So how do I recharge? You know, I ride my Peloton like an hour and a half every day. I'm a crazy person.
Get that energy out.
Yeah, I'm working out like nonstop. I mean, I've been doing that for a while. I travel a lot, which is really difficult right now because we're all just stuck and it just feels like it's never going to end. And my boyfriend and I both travel a lot. We travel a lot together, and it's really taking a toll on our psyche. Like we just need time away. And so we've found ways to get really innovative about doing things and recharging. Like for example, next week, I'm taking off to just kind of just do things around the New York and New Jersey area that I haven't done before. Like I've lived here 9 years. I've never been to City Island. I've never been to a vineyard up in, you know, upstate New York. And I love wine. So like, I'm going to do that type of things. But I think for me, recharging, especially in the age of like just being stuck at home, is working out a lot, and trying to just find different cute little things that I can do in my own New York backyard that I may have never done before. I mean, I never went to Montauk. I went 3 weeks ago, thankful to one of my friends who invited me to come out to stay with her for a weekend. And when I tell you, I like crashed. Like I was just sitting there and she'd be like, Lauren, you want to go for a walk on the beach? And I'm like, no. Like, no, I don't want to go. I think it's very important, and it's very paramount for anyone who works in any field to find time for yourself. Like, even if it's just like 10 minutes, do some meditation. The Calm app is phenomenal. Sleep Stories on Calm, man, I'm out. I wake up the next morning like, what happened? No idea. But even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes, do something, because you cannot be the best version of yourself at work if you're tired. It's just, you're just not going to. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to put out the best work. You need to take that time.
Yeah, I don't think mental health is addressed nearly as much as it should be.
Yeah.
So I think we all deal with mental stress and fatigue
in our community or
in general. I just think in general. So
especially in our community.
Especially in our community, 100%, because of the narrative of you're less than, you shouldn't be here. We get, and then you get the scraps.
We're conditioned to, we don't have time for that, right? We don't have time to be taking mental health days. We keep on pushing on, because when we were working on the plantation from Can't See to Can't See, we didn't have time for a break. There wasn't a break. There was never a break. When Black people were raised in this nation, they were suckling masses children before their own. And if they had enough for their own, their kids were dying.
Yeah.
So it's generational. That hardcore ethic. Just keep on pushing through regardless.
Mental health is so important to talk about, especially in our community. I mean, I think there's just been, like you said, there's been this narrative for so long, especially within our Black men, that you're seen as weak if you have any type of emotion or you show any type of fatigue. Like, it's so imperative that our Black men realize that it's okay to have these conversations, even if it's just with each other. You're not less than if you need to seek help for anything. It's only for your own benefit. It's going to help you be the best version of yourself without all of that added weight that you're carrying around, that you've just been lugging for so many years. And it's really important for people to realize that, especially our Black men.
You know, my mental health is, when I drive home, I think about all the shit that went on that pisses me off. As soon as I pull in my driveway, I put that key in the door, and my daughter Desiree and Gabrielle run down those stairs to greet me, it's gone. It is gone. I reset, and tomorrow I go and I try to continue to be the strong person that I am. And sometimes, I even find myself having to tell my wife, because my wife looks at me as, I'm the provider, I'm a man, I'm a big guy, I'm very aggressive and assertive. And I tell my wife all the time, listen, I would love to come home and just like, you just fall into my arms and just melt everything inside of me. Like, we need to be caressed and loved just like women need to be caressed and loved as men. So
Yes.
I'm a big guy. I'm a sensitive guy.
Yeah, you a big teddy bear, bro.
He just went from having a full on meltdown to making love on the
aggressive
Zoom.
and assertive, but now you soft and you all cuddly.
I'm a little bit everything.
I don't mind. But he went from two extremes. First, he had a meltdown, and then he was having sex on the Zoom.
That was great. I love you, Devon.
Because it's showing the young men who are watching that it's okay to have these.
It is totally okay.
I was voted most dramatic in high school, by the way.
That's great.
So we're gonna start to like wrap up, but I wanted to just get some closing thoughts from all of us, and just really outline our experience and what we want to share with those watching about being Black in corporate America in our lens. So we'll save you for last, Lauren.
I'm gonna drink water.
This is very simple for me. The fact that we're here in Kellen's office, Fit Club, New York, having a conversation with Lauren about her experience personally and professionally, and to know that you're such a great, positive role model for Black people in general, but mainly for Black women. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And what I would say, to be honest, I've worked in the public space for a long time, but those experiences are those experiences. Like when I got my doctorate, and people who I have no personal relationship with, who called me Mr. Johnson every single day. And then when I got my doctorate, they started calling me Aaron. I was like, oh, you mad? You don't want to use that title. Like different microaggressions, different microaggressions, different things. I've had overt racism, from somebody writing Mr. Johnson's a nigger on the bathroom wall and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's weird the way in which I deal with a lot of things. I'm very strong, I'm very unapologetic. So people they tend to now in these days, they don't mess with me on a certain level. But I actually had a question for you. I didn't even really, to me, it was like, it ain't about me. It's really it's about you. And if you want to answer it now, or if you wanted to wait till Kellen spoke, it really doesn't matter. You can think about it. I wanted to know, what's Lauren's perfect come true? What's her perfect professional and even personal come true? Like, I've done it. I'm good. Like that moment. So on a second to think about that, you could definitely, we could wait.
Up to you, Kellen.
You tell me, Lauren. I feel like the energy is shifting towards you right now, so I would be remiss to jump in.
I think my come through moment, I really think the thing that would be the icing on the cake for me would be to be named Chief Marketing Officer of a major corporation. I only need it once. CMOs don't tend to last very long in their roles. They tend to have like an expiration date of like a year. I just want to do it once and then I'm done. I want to just have that on my resume. Yeah, that's the highest office you can hold as a marketer. I never envisioned that for myself. And so to have the opportunity to get there, and I'm far off, but I'm not that far off. I think that would be my ultimate moment. I don't know if anyone on here knows who Bozoma St. John is. She is now the CMO of Netflix. She was the CMO of Endeavor, which had Miss Universe. She was the chief brand officer of Uber, and she is unapologetically herself. Her name is Badass Boz on Instagram. She is 100% authentic African, and she brings that full force in everything that she does. I want that and more. And so I think that that would be my moment. And then I would just be like, all right, I'm done.
You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. I know you said you sometimes that you don't envision that. Start envisioning that. Like start, because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And the way that it happens is by having it up here first, right? We talked a lot about like mindset and mentality, mental health. And, you know, we start to talk about mental health a lot from like the perspective of like it coming from a negative place, trying to just get to normal. But now when we talk about getting from normal, doing the extraordinary things, it's the same process, right? So start to envision it, Lauren, because it's going to happen for you.
Oh no, I mean, I envision it now. I think for like now I can see it happening. When I first started out, I didn't want to work in marketing. So I didn't really envision it then. Like I was like, because my dad worked in marketing for like 30 years and I was like, I don't want to do that. Somehow I ended up in the same profession. But
Funny how that works out, huh?
Right. I definitely see it happening now. I just didn't really think that that would be my track that I would take. But yeah, I'm definitely envisioning it because I'm like, I just need to hit that CMO so I can get that check and be done.
That's it. I love it. So my takeaway before we get back to you, Lauren, from just listening to this conversation today is, one, I want to challenge, you know, whoever's listening to this. I thought Lauren brought up a great point about, you know, the difference between being a mentor and a sponsor. I know there's a lot of great Black professionals out there, and I want to challenge more Black professionals to be that sponsor. That being a mentor is great. It's a great step. But advocating for someone in a room that they can't get into takes that to a whole nother level. So I want to just challenge the Black professionals on here who have that capability to do that more and more, because I think that's going to open more doors for Black women, Black men in corporate America. And the second thing that I want to leave with, or leave the people with, is constantly being on offense, right? Divine spoke about it. Aaron spoke about it. Dr. Johnson, spoke about it. Lauren spoke about it. And it's the fact that, you know, you sometimes have to be selfish, right? Kobe Bryant was labeled as a selfish basketball player from time to time, but he knew that he had the skill, he practiced, he put in the time, he put the sweat equity in to be selfish. For our people, we need to do the same thing in the corporate setting. If you're ambitious, go get it. If you have something to say, go say it. Just consistently be on offense. Stop playing defense, because playing defense doesn't push the needle for us to move forward. Being on offense does. So that's my takeaway, and that's what I want to press and push out to the masses. Lauren, please, if you can just take us home, we would love for that.
I love all three of your perspectives. I think, first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be your first guest on your wonderful show. I think it's so amazing that there are three Black men on a platform together who has such amazing friendship, bond, everything, all of that, who are, you're utilizing your platforms in order to educate others, in order to uplift them. And so I think that that deserves the credit that is due, because that's not something that I take lightly, and I don't think that anyone else should take lightly. So I want to say that first, and I am very honored to be here. In terms of corporate America, I mean, there's so many different nuances and ins and outs and all of these different things that we deal with on a daily basis, you know, having to go through the George Floyd murder and still show up every single day with a smile on your face and be on these Zoom calls and have people tapping you on D&I efforts. And that stuff is challenging. But I will say, and I think it goes back to what Dr. Johnson said.
Dr. Johnson.
I wrote it down because I loved that: values, voice, and visibility. I think out of the three of those, well, no, I think they all are really important. your voice. Don't ever you lose your voice. Your voice is the one thing that you have in life, and let that shine no matter how uncomfortable it makes other people, especially right now. People are willing to listen. So make sure that you're utilizing your voice in order to make a difference. Make sure that you are visible, that you're not just having your head down at a table at your desk at home, especially right now. It's very easy to do because now we're just all just working from the comfort of our homes, especially in corporate America. I mean, we're not going back to work anytime soon. So make sure that you're still visible. And then lastly, there are so many other corporations out there that people can work for. If you feel like your values do not line up with that corporation that you are currently working at, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of job opportunities right now where people are looking for you specifically. Go somewhere where you will be appreciated and where they will find a way to uplift you. Because if that is not happening, then you need to make that move. So that's what I will leave it with. I think that this has been so awesome. So thank you again. But I hope that your viewers really found it insightful and helpful, and that they're able to utilize some of the things that we've been able to discuss in order to, better their own personal lives, even if they don't work in corporate America, because some of this stuff applies no matter what function you are in, because you're going to still experience those different microaggressions or challenges, et cetera, that I've experienced in my 14 plus years working in the industry. But yeah, I think that's it. Unless you guys want me to say something else.
No, I mean, that was perfect. That was phenomenal.
I think that was great. I know Divine wants to do one thing because today was the funeral for John Lewis. So I know we wanted to really make sure that we highlighted him and his life as well.
Yeah, so I watched the funeral today. Obviously, I've seen this man take the podium as a representative in the House of Representatives. And I'm talking about when I say strong language about us and our communities, strong language. When he was in college at Fisk, he, as a 20-year-old, sat in a white-only establishment. And, those guys were abused. When they walked across that bridge in Georgia, they walked across Selma, that man basically got his brains bashed in as a 24-year-old, okay? And he has never stopped making people uncomfortable. He has never stopped being strong. So I just wanna give my love and admiration to a strong Black man from our community, making a great example for who we are.
Should we do a moment of silence?
We should definitely do a moment of silence.
Do it. And that's for John Lewis. Thank you. Lauren, thank you. Again, this is Perspectives of a Black Man. We have a strong Black woman on today. Again, and Lauren Williams, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone who's watching, again, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this tremendously valuable. There's no fee for this. The only fee is that we ask you to share this experience. Like the YouTube page, subscribe to the YouTube page. Divine, give us a little bit more information.
So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel that is Diverse Skill Training. You can also access our live feed, which is every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. through my website. That's www.diverseskilltrainingny.com. And I want to give some credit to my brother, Russell Brereton, started his own t-shirt organization. That's the shirts that we're wearing now. It's called Bridging the Gaps. And he loves it. He's very passionate about it, and he's done a great job. And we're appreciative that we now have billboards, self-billboards, right on our shirts here. So I want to give some love and some credit to my brother here.
That's it.
It's important to have good marketing.
That's right. It's important to have good marketing.
I need to call you for that, Lauren.
That's a fact.
Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Lauren. Really appreciate your time and effort. Until next time, guys.
Hold on. This is not right. I'm out.
Oh, he always has to leave.
Yeah, Divine Lexi, he's got a bladder issue. He can't be on camera for over 60 minutes without using the restroom. So that's Divine. Until next time, guys, we'll see you.
Peace.
Peace.
That's hilarious.
Boom.
You end it, you gotta end it.
I mean, a second.
Hmm?
2 seconds. Want to get that last shot. You know what I'm saying?
Bye, Lauren.
Bye, Lauren. Thank you.
Peace.
Bye.
You know what I was thinking?